What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast featuring Phil Perry. We will get back to your regularly scheduled offensive coordinator watch after today's pod. We might even dabble in it today, but really what I want to do is focus on Jakobi Meyers. This is the Jakobi Meyers pod. And what the Patriots will do with this wide receiver is an interesting question. I wrote some stuff down here, so I'm going to put my glasses on. Because how they approach it is indicative of how they will approach this next phase. Jakobi Meyers is a free agent. In 4 seasons with the team, he's made $6 million, or 3/5 of what Isaiah Wynn made in 2022 alone. $4 million of that came this past year when Meyers had 67 catches for 804 yards and 6 touchdowns. By comparison, Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Agholor caught 66 passes for 796 yards and 3 touchdowns for $22 million in combined cap space, $13 million in real money. 3 times between the two of them what Jakobi Meyers made. 2 guys, 32 combined games, less productive than 1 guy in 14 games for 3 times the actual money. It really is eye-popping. So as 2023 approaches and the Patriots go through another reset with a real offensive plan and a fair amount of cap space, how do they proceed? Do they look at Meyers, who they found and developed, and still see him as something they created, and hence they have a hard time envisioning him as being a player north of $10 million a year? Something like, say, $4 and $40 million? Do they realize or believe that he is not going to be worth that much on the open market and say, we can lowball him? Remember, though, Agholor signed for $2 and $24. They paid Agholor and Jonnu Smith and other pass catchers who had done nothing for their team, and they paid them on spec. You guys are going to produce for us at a certain level when we bring you in. Here's a bunch of money. None of them delivered, except to a degree Bourne. Meanwhile, you know what you can get from Jakobi Meyers. It's steady, it's dependable, it's about 70 to 80 catches. It's not flashy, but it's secure. Meanwhile, you already saved money on him and got high-end or high middle-class production. The valuation for Meyers this year on his deal from overthecap.com was $8 million. That's 2 times what he made. And I know it doesn't work this way, but if you prorate what you will pay Jakobi Meyers over the life of the deal, say you give him $4 and $44, if you prorate that over the 8 seasons, he's already been here for 4, you would have paid him $50 million over 8 seasons. But still, we pine. We pine for that number 1 beast, that DeAndre Hopkins or T. Higgins via trade. Or the next in free agency, Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel. Find him in the draft. Find him in free agency. How's Bill feel about Jakobi Meyers? Here he is in October speaking at length about this player that the Patriots did an unbelievable job in developing.
Honestly, we've had a lot of guys like that, but come in as a rookie free agent, expectations are low immediately, but then as things start to improve, such as his blocking and his overall route running and instinctive and savviness. I mean, kind of different, but kind of like Edelman in the development. I'm saying they're the same player. They're not. But, Edelman's a guy who didn't play much for a while and then became a great receiver here. One of the most dependable players we've ever had. That certainly wasn't the case in like year 2 or year 3 as he was in that developing stage. Players like Julian and Jakobi are both good examples of players who played quarterback. Like however good they weren't a quarterback. That's not really the point. The point is that they've seen the ball come in from their hand as opposed to always being on the receiving end of it, and kind of where you wouldn't want to throw, and what helps a receiver, how a receiver can help a quarterback, or how a receiver can kind of fool a quarterback and make it hard for the quarterback to throw to him. So I think, in terms of being quarterback friendly, let's call it, that's something that kind of, I'd say, came naturally to him. But no, Jakobi's worked extremely hard. He's developed route running concepts and techniques at multiple positions, inside, outside, play action, drop back, quicker throws, knowing when he has more time to operate, knowing when he has to get open quicker, things like that, based either on the timing of the play, the situation. So he's a very smart, savvy football player on a lot of levels, not just in the passing game and in the running game, and in another formationing and things like that. So, yeah, it's been a great time of growth for him, and it's really fun to see guys develop like that, come in and not be very far along, but then progressively just keep stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking. Like, you watch guys develop like that, it's fun to watch, and it's a real credit to the amount of work and time they put into it.
All right, here's one of my best friends on the planet. It's Phil Perry, also a coworker. Phil, don't you want to keep that going with Jakobi Meyers?
No doubt. They should. They should try at the very least. And it's my understanding that there are a lot of people in the building who are hoping that they can make something work out with Jakobi Meyers. And while you and I on TV for sure, and others have looked at Jakobi Meyers as probably the guy who's going to be the highest paid free agent receiver on this year's market, I'm not sure there's a consensus as far as that goes. Juju Smith-Schuster is available. He's coming off a pretty good year in Kansas City with a great quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. But I think the other thing is just, again, talking to some different front office people, because of the skill set that he has, Tom, he's not going to be the most highly coveted guy. And, so what does that mean in terms of his market? That's just going to be such a fascinating thing to track, because there aren't teams, generally speaking, tripping over themselves to sign receivers to big money contracts that aren't fast. Jakobi Meyers just isn't fast. He brings other things to the table, but speed's not really one of them.
And I think that you look at a perfect comp for him is Dante Hightower. Dante Hightower is one of the most productive, smartest, talented, violent players in football. And he hit the open market and was like, yeah, well, what are we going to do with him? It's not what we're looking for at this juncture. And he ends up back with the Patriots after dalliances with the Steelers and I believe the Jets, and making very, very good money for us, but not upper echelon top 5 money. And when you look at some of the things he did for the Patriots, nobody else could have done them. I think other people can do what Jakobi Meyers does for the Patriots, but it's a real needle in a haystack to find them. So to me, it's more valuable to make sure Jakobi Meyers is here than you find that guy who everybody comes off and goes, they have him now? I think it's more important to make sure Meyers stays than you find a Tyreek Hill or a DeAndre Hopkins or a T. Higgins. And I know that you have a bit of a contrary viewpoint on that, and it dates back to a lot of the reporting that you did prior to the 2022 season, right?
Yeah, and to me, if you want to be a great offense, figure out a way to get both. That's, to me, the solution, because I think to have a relatively high floor, you need somebody like Jakobi Meyers. But in order to bump up your ceiling, to be one of the elite offenses in football, to compete with the Kansas Cities and the Buffaloes and maybe the Jacksonvilles moving forward with Trevor Lawrence, who knows, in this conference, you're probably going to have to be sniffing elite territory offensively. And with the weapons you have now, Jakobi Meyers included, it's just really hard to get there. Talking to people, you mentioned it, defensive coordinators this season, during the season, last season, after the season, they don't have enough in the way of down the field threats to change the geometry of opposing defenses, which can make it easier for those defenses to game plan for you and to scheme against you week to week. So Jakobi Meyers isn't moving the needle as far as that goes, but on third down, Tom, you need a guy like that, because if you don't, then you could really be up a creek.
Yeah, and then it binds up the running game. Who's your most talented offensive player? Maybe it's Ramondre Stevenson, but he's getting pummeled when he gets the ball because nobody's afraid of dropping an extra guy down in the box and playing a single high safety and getting after the run game for the Patriots, because you don't have to play too deep, because there is not more than one guy who can stretch the field. However, Phil, look at the group that's out there and the difficulty in finding not just somebody, but the right guy. and extracting him from another team and getting him in here as being too difficult to perform in 2023. No matter how much money you have, don't make the Nelson Aguilar mistake again, where you say, well, he's the best guy on the shelf right here, so we got to take him. We need one of these. Because to me, between Meyers, if you resign him, Kendrick Bourne, if you can find an olive branch to extend to make him happy. Allegedly, he says he's content to come back. It's not what I had been hearing during the season at all. But if it's changed, it's changed. And not directly from Kendrick, by the way. Devontae Parker, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, God willing, and Tyquan Thornton can be that guy who makes you sweat. If you have those, you have aerial weapons who, in their totality, should make a defensive coordinator say, well, if we shade this way, he's going to hit us on this one. If we don't shade that way, this guy's going to get after you. So to me, they have the pieces in place, except for one, which we'll get to. I want to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, I would say
my stand pat stance is basically what I'm wondering about.
So here's the thing. What I would say first is we've seen them be a really good offense without that guy. 2 years ago, with Mac Jones in his rookie year and no Devontae Parker and no Tyquan Thornton, they still ended up as the number 6 overall scoring offense in football. And they were able to have a really effective running game, which was, I think, even more impressive than maybe the numbers would show, because, again, you didn't have that guy on the outside, so you were running against stack boxes, and you were still really efficient running the football. So good for them on that front. So we've seen them more than get by, at least over a regular season stretch. And then, you run into better teams and better offenses and better defenses in the postseason and the Buffalo Bills, and it feels like you've got nothing offensively. So, they have to kind of come to grips with, okay, how good were we in 2021? How good, could we have been if we had a more functional situation in 2022? I just think, I think it is important to be able to change how a defense looks at you. And if they think Tyquan Thornton's that guy, Tom, if you think Tyquan Thornton's that guy, good for you, good for them. I'm just not there yet. He was so inconsistent this year that it's hard for me to bank on that.
But it's a potential thing, because you look at it and say, okay, well, maybe he could be, and we have him under our control and for a certain price. If you go into the Paris Campbell, who's a free agent, former first-round pick, might be an early second, but I loved him. Hasn't done diddly. If you go into the Paris Campbell aisle in the store and grab him, it's the same thing. So stick with Tyquan Thornton, develop him, and figure it out, find out, because everything else is a dice roll, as we've seen with Aguilar. It's a cautionary tale.
You can't Tom, here's the thing, though. Paris Campbell, sorry, you don't move the needle at all. And Nelson Aguilar, we knew at the time, Tom, Nelson Aguilar wasn't going to move the needle, even if he was the best available. Like everybody, I shouldn't say everybody. I'll speak for myself. That's one of the very few free agents that they have brought in where at the time you say they're going to regret this one, and they regretted that one.
I would say it was 83%.
About as soon as they got him on the field. So we can't be talking about those guys. The guys we have to be talking about are the guys that you would have to pay either a lot in draft capital or trade compensation, or both actual money in the form of a new deal. Somebody like a T. Higgins, who I think is a true number one talent, not a Nelson Aguilar, a true number one, who's a number 2 on his team because he's playing with one of the best receivers in football.
But I say don't do that. I say no flipping way, because you're going to have to give up trade capital for T. Higgins, correct? Not a free agent. And then you're going to have to satiate him with the contract, the same way that the Tennessee Titans had to do with a similar situation in A.J. Brown, who was a second-round pick. It is working out for the Eagles because they have an offensive coordinator / head coach in Nick Sirianni, an unbelievable offensive line with Lane Johnson and the other dudes whose names are going to escape me right now, and all those other players who help make it work. So to me, that's the last piece. Right now, you got to put the coach in place and then the offensive line in place and see if you can retreat and get the production from Kendrick Bourne that you did, and get the production from Jonnu Smith that has been forthcoming but not seen, or Hunter Henry. Don't force it. And I think there's going to be a lot of, because it's the nature of the time of year in the business, in the industry, to say, how can you get as good as possible immediately? And if the answer's not there, you got to skip it.
I would just look at who the Patriots are and what they have at quarterback. and take that into account and say, if you want to be a great team in today's NFL, I think you need a great receiver, unless you have such an otherworldly talented quarterback that he can make every receiver he has look excellent, right? Patrick Mahomes right now, Patrick Mahomes doesn't have that guy. Like the Patriots and the Chiefs receiving cores right now, I would say are comparable. But one team is Patrick Mahomes. Okay, you don't have that. And Mac Jones isn't going to be that. But how can you get him to compete on that same level, score at that same level? I would try to get him as many talented weapons as I could.
And there is a player, obviously, you know this, in Kansas City who does make defensive coordinators pee down their leg, and it's Travis Kelce. Just an absolute machine, a layup the same way Gronk was. Not only did, and we can talk about Tyreek Hill and compare Julian Edelman to him. Sorry, Julian Edelman in his system in New England was every bit as potent as Tyreek Hill was. Now, was Julian Edelman going to run away from a safety who can run like Devin McCourty the way Tyreek Hill did in whatever year that was? Is still the most amazing thing I ever saw. Just leave him in the dust. No. But Tyreek Hill is also not going to be taking the amount of interior punishment and run after the catch. Well, he could be run after the catch. All right, I'm not going to say Edelman's better than Tyreek Hill, but they're damn comparable in their systems, Kansas City or New England. The Patriots don't have that, but maybe I'm stuck in the past, Phil, in trying to say, go find the slot. Go find the Edelman / Amendola. Go find the Jimmy White. Go find the Shane Vereen. Go find the Troy Brown. Go find the Kevin Falk. Find those. If it's Marcus Jones, let it be Marcus Jones. You can find another corner. You're good at developing those. If it's Pierre Strong, let it be Pierre Strong. But you look at this draft coming up, Phil. There's Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, and I'm not sure exactly. He didn't play as much, but Jackson Smith and Jiba. I hope I didn't really brutalize that. Who are in the draft as smaller wideouts, Smith and Jiba. Phil, am I killing that word? I actually just called a 20-second timeout and listened to it. You can Google how do you pronounce X name, and then the guy comes on. He says Jackson Smith and Jigba. So it's Jackson Smith and Jigba. Ohio State did not play very much at all in 2022. But he had, in 2021, 95 receptions for 1,600 yards, more than both Wilson and Olave at Ohio State. So this could be a guy who's hanging around the draft. I don't want to get into the draftable wide receivers, but the point is you can draft. You got guys on the roster you can turn into third down backs. You don't have to go screaming out there for T. Higgins, Phil. Cut it out.
So here's where an idiot. Don't you tell me to cut it out. You cut it out. Because your plan is all over the map right now. So what is your offense? You want a slot receiver and Jakobi Meyers? Jakobi Meyers is a slot receiver.
I want a third down.
T. Higgins is not a slot receiver. These guys don't play the same positions.
No, they don't.
So what's your offense? What's your ideal? No. I'm asking you a question now, sir. You see my finger? That's going right between your eyes, Poindexter. Wow. What's your ideal offense for 2023? Lay it out for me. Give me names.
Ideal offense includes Thornton, Parker, Myers, and Bourne as your wideouts. Hunter Henry is your tight end mainly. Jonnu Smith, find something for him to do somewhere. Then Phil, Ramondre Stevenson comes off the field on third down. Oh, but he catches passes. Yeah, he's not sudden. So you either put Pierre Strong in that job, or Ty Montgomery if he heals up and comes back, but takes the job that he was designed to have. Or you go and find Marcus Jones and say, Marcus, you're an offensive player now, okay? We don't have anybody like you. But they need, whether it be a slot, Phil, and you're right, I'm babbling here in terms of, I look at slot and third down back as interchangeable third down cures, as interior players that you can use in the red zone and on third down. And they don't have it right now. That's why they suck in the red zone. That's why they suck on third down. Find one or the other. But you don't have to go finding, I don't think, in my estimation, a pick it off, one of those guys, a downfield threat. There you go. Stuttering. Fool.
Okay. So you want Jakobi Meyers, but additionally, You want another player who's a little quicker off the line because you don't think Jakobi Meyers is that guy.
I don't think that he is an uncoverable third down threat who you can line up anywhere and be sudden, and people just have to go, we have to put a player and a half on him. The way you would have to with James White or Julian Edelman, one of which came in the 7th round, the other of which came in the 4th round.
So if you feel that way about him, I think you should be in the camp of not wanting him around because that's sort of what they have him for. And I think you make a good point. I agree with you. He's not the player and a half person. He's not the unstoppable automatic 3rd and 8 guy. I think he's dependable, but he's also not the outside the numbers, threaten the safety guy either. So if you don't want him in that role, then maybe you move on from him. And maybe that's how Bill Belichick feels about him.
But he's still a 70 catch guy. And 70 catch guys, even if you roll him out there with that third down back, he's still going to catch you 70 balls for 800 yards. Is $10 million a year too much to spend on that? Maybe, and the Patriots have to project that. But again, if you go back to how much production he's given you and how much he may give you going forward and the rising salary cap, if you end up over an 8-year period of time with Jakobi Meyers in your lineup, spending $50 million on him for 8 years times 70 catches, what's that, 560 catches? You got your money's worth.
Here's what I think your ideal offense is then, and I'm going to just go right ahead and put words in your mouth. Okay. I think your ideal offense is something like either Devontae Parker or Tyquan Thornton, Jakobi Meyers as sort of the hybrid player. We have seen him play outside a little bit before.
Yeah.
And then somebody like Zay Flowers to play in the slot, who could be that uncoverable force that you're talking about, even if he's not a quote unquote field stretcher. Like, I think he has really good athleticism. Zay Flowers out of Boston College, some of our listeners, I'm sure, have seen him play during his college years and had a pretty good year this past year, even with a bad situation, essentially offensively.
So
I think that's what you're talking about. But then now Kendrick Bourne's out of the mix. And
you're pushing me forward into a solution, which is to trade Kendrick Bourne and get something back for a player who can be very, very useful. You could even get a third round pick. Maybe we got 1 year on his deal left. Maybe certainly a 4th to get him back. I don't know. It's just. He was so.
And maybe you find your third down. Maybe you find your third down back with that pick, Tom. I don't know. I'd give Pierre Strong a shot there because he was a 4th round pick for you. Like, if you're just going to use him on special teams and he's gonna not do a great job on kickoff, and you're going to give up a kick return for a touchdown in the most important game of the season, like, you got to try to find some value for that guy somewhere else after using the pick that you used on him last year. So I'd give him a shot there, but I would want more options. Maybe it's Ty Montgomery. Maybe it's a rookie. I'm with you. I do think, even if it's just to get Ramondre Stevenson off the field occasionally, you can't ask him to be a true 3-down back and expect him to last the entire season. Especially the way he plays, right? He's such a physical guy and he's seeking out contact. You got to find somebody to spell him. And I don't know if it's Strong, but I guess I would start there next year and just see if he can do it.
It's every time I've mentioned this, on social media and saying what a priority it is. And I mentioned a few weeks ago, a lot of people are like, what's the matter with Ramondre Stevenson? Nothing is the matter with Ramondre Stevenson, but the days of the 250 touch running back are dead. Stop doing it. You need in the Patriots offense something that is complementary at the second level. How often do we see Mac Jones patrolling downfield, watching routes, trying to unfold 10, 12 yards downfield when no one was running at the second level underneath the linebackers, crossing low to try and bring some heat? Nothing. Wasn't happening. Phil, this whole thing gets into the bigger picture build or buy conversation. And if you look back in 2020, really in the twilight of Brady's time here, you obviously could tell that they were buying a team because they had a window. They tried to buy with, Sanu and Antonio Brown, 1st round picks on Michelle and Wynn. And they leveraged their standing as a ring chasing destination by bringing guys in who might otherwise not be interested in playing for a team that was rebuilding. They were all in at all times. 2020 was documented. Bill Belichick proclaimed it basically as a reset. They still did get a good free agent that year in Adrian Phillips, but it was a reset. But in 2021, they went back to buy mode. And I don't know if that's because of the pressure to return to where they had been as an elite team. The money was burning a hole in their pocket. They felt the rest of the league was strapped and had to go cuckoo. But they did spend indiscriminately, with the Smith and the Aguilar contracts being the best example. So now here we are in 2022, didn't do anything, wasted money on guys like Isaiah Wynn. And here's 2023, and they have a decent amount of money again. I think it was fourth in the league in terms of salary cap space relative to everybody else. Do you build, which I think they've done a pretty good job of in the draft and free agency in the last couple of years, or do you buy?
Tom, the non-sexy answer, but the teams that I like the most are the teams that do both, right? And every great team in some way has to do both. But like the 2014 Patriots with Rob Gronkowski developed talent, Dante Hightower developed talent, Chandler Jones developed talent, but then they bought really key pieces like Danny Amendola, Darrelle Revis, had an MVP argument at one point that year, which I believe you made and made really effectively. So those are the best teams, and I would use the money that they have this offseason to go out and buy a piece that they need to play and play well right away, Tom. And the spot that stands out to me is tackle. So like I'd buy a tackle. I'd probably develop at corner because corners tend to be, at least the ones are good, tend to be really expensive. But Bill Belichick has done a really good job over the years of finding, day 2, day 3 corners. He's missed on some round 2 corners, but some day 3 guys or undrafted guys that have been real players. So like you have to find the balance.
If you buy a tackle and Jakobi Meyers, and that precludes you from trying to track a wide receiver someplace else, unless you can figure out a Kendrick Bourne situation. You okay with that? Do you think the offense will be significantly improved in 2023 with, say, Bill O'Brien or coordinator X in place, tackle stability, and that's really it.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think they'd be vastly improved with, say, Bill O'Brien and say somebody who I've been told, again, just making some initial calls. We're well before free agency here, but, Mike McGlinchey, who's a starting tackle for the Niners right now, was a first-round pick years ago out of Notre Dame. He would probably be their speed as the kind of player they'd be looking for. I think right then and there, you've helped solve your offensive line. You've created a more functional overall system that should make everybody a little bit better. Yeah, I think that could be enough. But then you have the draft. You have the draft to, dip into receiver early or dip into corner early. If those to me are the other two really significant needs. Or maybe Tom, again, if you feel like you can get your corner late and you don't want to take another first round receiver, maybe you use that first round pick. You go get T. Higgins. You figure out your cap however you need to figure it out. And now my ideal offense is looking like, with Mike McGlinchey, with Bill O'Brien, I've got T. Higgins on the outside. I'm re-signing Jakobi Meyers. I don't know. Maybe somebody would look at me, Bill would look at me and say, how much money do you think we have, Phil?
Well, that's the thing is too, that's what kicked into my head. I'm like, okay, well, max up in 2 years. He's going to be $40 million player. Oh, is he? Oh, is he, Jim? That was a little Tony Romo there for you. On that note, we're 32 minutes in or so, and we got nothing right now on the coordinator front. What we will do is Phil did last week, outstanding performance by him. If we have to jump in and give you an emergency pod on Next Path or Patriots Talk, we will do that. We will do it. Phil, anything else to say before we jettison you?
No, nothing at all. I'm all tapped out of words. 0 words.
All right.
I'll find something
Phil's
later.
on early edition Thursday night. I am on, what's it called there? Oh, sorry, Boston Sports Tonight. And you know what? I might be back at you again tomorrow because I think I have a date with 4 ladies. Huh? No, I'm supposed to do that 80 for Brady. They're having a media tour. And if I get a chance to talk to Rita Moreno, Sally Field, Jane Fonda, and Rita Moreno, Jane Fonda, Sally Field. I'm old. I'm also old. So I'm forgetting who the 4th woman is. But I
think you're slowly losing your opportunity to interview her the longer it takes for you to come up with her name.
and now I'm frozen.
Lily Tomlin.
Yep. Bostwick 999. See, I can come back, and I know Lily Tomlin skits from like the 60s and 70s, so I can save myself by saying it was just an oversight on my part. Not that I didn't know who the woman was at all. Very funny woman. So, okay, let's put a cork in it. See you guys.